Hi, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another very interesting topic and very important as well. And today we'll be talking about the various combinations in a chart which can make somebody into a very successful government job, or get somebody rather a very successful government job. And as we know, in India, the top bureaucrat job is the Indian Administrative Services, which used to be called Indian Civil Services before independence, when India was under British rule. Now it's called Indian Administrative Services, but there are various levels of government jobs. It does not need to be necessarily an IAS or an Indian Administrative Services. There are government jobs which are very prestigious, and bureaucrats are appointed by the government who handle various portfolios in terms of foreign affairs or revenues or even the police department. And that applies not only to India, to various countries where the government appoints and gives important portfolios to people to manage their affairs in terms of, it could be a Secretary of State in the U.S. or minister or a Secretary of Defense. That's a top bureaucrat job, or the chief of the police staff, chief of the army staff, so on and so forth. So we'll be talking about various combinations which apply universally as far as getting a government job is concerned, and what kind of government jobs one can get based on the combination of planets one has in their birth charts. So in terms of government, as we know, the most important planet today is Sun. Well, it always was. Sun was always very important, most important in terms of the government. In ancient times, you would have noticed that famous kings, powerful kings, had a very well-placed sun in their birth chart, because Sun was about rulership, about energy, about power. And in today's day and age, of course, there are no kings except for just a couple in the world left now. So now, of course, even if it's a democratically elected government, the government appoints top bureaucrats and top diplomats who are into the foreign service, so on and so forth. But the position of Sun is extremely important in case he or she were to join a government job, because, like I said, Sun is about the government. So you have to look at that. Look at the placement of Sun as in the chart, where the placement is, whether it's placed in a good house, a Kendra house, a bad house, which is a Dusthana house, and what's the strength of Sun in the birth chart. What's the sixfold strength, which you see, which we call as Shadbal. People who are not aware of Shadbal, please refer to my earlier videos on Shadbal. What degrees a planet has, or the planet Sun has, what aspects he is getting, whether he's getting aspected by a malefic like a Rahu or a Ketu or a Saturn. Although the most malefic aspect on a Sun is Rahu or Ketu, that has to be taken into consideration. Where it is positioned, I've already mentioned that. And look at it from the point of view of, first look at it in the main Rashi chart, and then go to the divisional chart, which is the D10 chart, also called the Dasamsa chart in Sanskrit. And the Dasamsa chart is going to give you even more details as to what the placement of Sun is in the Dasamsa, because Dasamsa is the specific chart related to the 10th house of career and power and prestige. So look at the placement of Sun there. You would see that, in case the Sun is not well placed in the main birth chart and the divisional chart, which is the D10 chart in this case, then there may be a challenge in getting a good and successful government job. Now comes the execution part. So sun is about getting into the government, and the next important planet is the planet moon, because as we know in Vedic astrology, the sun is considered the king and the moon is considered the queen. And sun per se is more related to power and government, and you would have seen a good sun placement in the charts of successful politicians as well who rule. So not necessarily a good sun will get you into a good government job only. It can make you even higher than a government job, meaning which you could rule as a successful politician or a prime minister or a minister. But as far as executing the plans of sun is concerned, moon comes into play. And that's where the bureaucracy comes into play here. That you will see a very well placed moon in the charts of successful bureaucrats holding high portfolios, important portfolios. How's the moon placed? Because like I said, sun is the ruler and moon is the executor, the queen. And that's what bureaucracy is all about. Is the moon exalted in the birth chart? What planets are aspecting the moon? Are benefics aspecting the moon, or are malefics aspecting the moon? Which house is it placed? What's the Shadbal? Is it exalted, debilitated? Also look at the position of moon in the Dasansa chart. Now, other than looking at the Dasamsa and the main chart, look at it from the point of view of Gemini principles as well. And as we know that Amatya Karaka plays a very important role as far as a career of a person is concerned. That talks about career. So Amatya Karaka has to be looked into in detail. What planet becomes the Amatya Karaka? What's the placement of Amatya Karaka? That will also give you a good insight about whether the person is going to be a successful government servant or high top bureaucrat or not. So these things have to be taken into consideration. Other important things to be taken into consideration is, other than the placement and strength and the Ashtaka and the placement in the divisional charts, you have to also not ignore the placement of sun and moon as far as nakshatras are concerned. What nakshatra is sun and moon placed? Is the lord of the nakshatra an enemy or a friend of the of sun and moon? How is it behaving? How is the nakshatra behaving in terms of the placement of sun and moon is concerned? So that aspect also has to be taken into consideration, especially in the main chart. Now we come to some other combinations as far as the government job is concerned. Now, if you were to consider somebody who wants to join a government job and does not want to join an administrative service, he wants to join the police service. Now, what planet is very prominent as far as police and army is concerned? That's the planet Mars. So you have to look at, of course, the sun and the moon, which, the power of the sun and the rulership of the sun and the government, and then the execution part, which is done by moon. Then look at where the planet Mars is placed. How is it well disposed or it's not? Is it being aspected by malefics or benefics? What's the strength? What nakshatra it's placed in? How is it placed in the D10 or the Samsa chart? So that is specific to people who would like to join the police department or, are already in the police department. Similarly, there are other positions, finance department, to be able to be in a government job which handles, say for example, a high official in a finance ministry. So what planet rules over finance? That's the planet Jupiter. So you have to look at the position of Jupiter as well if you were to see that combination. So a good astrologer has to use a lot of tools to be able to determine as to what would be the best career suited to that person based on these planets and their position and the strength both in the main chart and the Samsa chart. And of course look at it from all angles, from the point of view of Ashtaka Varga, from the point of view of Gemini, so on and so forth, and then use it all to come to a final conclusion. Now We already discussed about the finance part. What about people who are connected with the revenue area, or people who are regulators of the stock markets? Then the planet Mercury comes into play. So the position of Mercury also, along with Sun, Moon, has to be taken into consideration. And then sometimes what happens is somebody may have, I mean, I've seen that in various charts, somebody may have gotten into a government job, but because of its weak position of one of these planets, Sun, Moon, or the respective planet which is related to that respective department he's working in, that if one of these areas is kind of weak, then he faces continuous challenges in his profession throughout his career. So that also has to be taken into consideration while, doing an analysis of a chart who's already in a government job and who's facing challenges. Now, other than just the planets, if you're looking at a birth chart of a successful diplomat who is into foreign affairs, so what are those houses? Houses should not be ignored as well. What are those houses which are connected with a foreign service? And you know that foreign diplomats, they go out and stay in foreign countries for long durations. They become ambassadors. So again, the planet Sun, the planet Moon, and then look at the houses as well. What are those planets which make you go and stay overseas? That's the 12th house. What's the house? What is the house that makes you go and stay overseas? I'm sorry. It's the 12th house. What's the house which makes you travel long distance? That's the 9th house. So those houses also have to be taken into consideration. And just to give you an example, similar cases with other portfolios. Say, for example, you're looking at a finance portfolio, some bureaucrat who's holding a finance portfolio. Of course, Jupiter along with Sun and Moon has to be taken into consideration, but at the same time, look at the second house, because the second house is the house of finances. And look at it again from the point of view of the main chart, from Ashtaka Varga, from Gemini principles, the nakshatra principles, where the planet is placed, which nakshatras these planets are placed, their afflictions, their benefic aspects which they are getting, and the Shansha, which is the D10 chart as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and try to do some little exercise on what we have discussed so far. Look at some of the charts of some important bureaucrats and somebody whom you probably know, your clients, or somebody whom you already know who are trying to get into a government job or who are already in a government job, and then come up with some of your observations that may help you a lot. And in the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel and check out my website. There is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic very soon. Goodbye.